What if I told you that the fastest way to make a man lose interest in you isn't by saying the wrong thing or by not looking perfect enough, but by making mistakes so small, so innocent, that you don't even realize you're making them? And yet, those mistakes quietly chip away at his desire until one day he's gone. Mentally first, physically later. This is not about blame. It's about power. Men and women are playing a game older than civilization itself, written into our biology, into the way attraction and respect are built. Most women believe they're simply being nice or being caring, but what they're really doing is sabotaging the very dynamic that keeps a man invested. Imagine this. A man doesn't fall in love because you give more, try harder, or bend over backwards. He falls deeper because he feels the tension of earning you. He respects the woman who instinctively understands how to trigger that primal instinct in him. And when she doesn't, when she makes one of these so-called innocent mistakes, his subconscious begins to register her not as the one, but as the option. Let's break this down. The first mistake is over-availability. A woman thinks she's showing love by being present every moment, answering instantly, never letting him wait. On the surface, it looks like devotion. Underneath, it signals something far more dangerous: predictability. In a man's primal brain, predictability equals low value. Think of it this way: what's more exciting, a treasure buried deep in the jungle or a coin lying on the sidewalk? One requires effort, risk, and persistence. The other requires nothing. Which one do you think he'll value more once it's in his hand? When a woman gives herself too easily, her time, her energy, her emotional presence, she removes the very challenge that forges attraction. A man doesn't consciously think, "She's always available, so I'm losing interest." But biologically, that's exactly what happens. His dopamine, the chemical that drives pursuit, no longer spikes around her. He begins to feel numb, and numbness is the first step toward detachment. Now, notice something crucial. This has nothing to do with playing games. It's not about waiting 3 hours to text back or pretending to be busy when you're not. It's about balance. A high-value woman does not schedule her life around a man. She has her own rhythm, her own pursuits, her own gravitational pull. When she gives him access, it feels earned, it feels significant, and that significance keeps him locked in pursuit. The second mistake is disguised under kindness: over-nurturing. Many women believe that by anticipating a man's needs, by smoothing over his frustrations, by taking care of every detail, they're showing value. But here's the hidden cost. When you overfunction, he underfunctions. When you overinvest, he underinvests. Think of attraction like a scale. If you put too much weight on your side, his side rises. His effort, his initiative, his desire float away. A woman who constantly manages his emotions, who tries to make him comfortable at all times, who removes every challenge, unknowingly emasculates him. She robs him of the very thing that bonds him to her, the act of proving himself. This is why you'll often see men drift away from the woman who did everything for them and become obsessed with the woman who seemed to do nothing, because the latter created space for his effort, while the former replaced it. The third mistake is subtle but deadly: verbal overexposure. Many women mistake emotional openness for constant disclosure. They narrate every feeling, every thought, every problem. They believe that if they let him into every corner of their inner world, he will feel closer. But in reality, what happens is erosion. A man's attraction thrives on mystery, on the unknown. He doesn't need to hear every thought to feel connected. In fact, too much information overloads his primal brain. It removes the tension, the intrigue, the sense that there is more to discover. Think about your favorite movie. You watch it once, and you're captivated. Watch it 50 times in a row, and the magic fades, not because the story changed, but because the element of discovery is gone. A woman who reveals everything too soon deprives him of the gradual unfolding that bonds him more deeply over time. Her honesty is not the issue. Her pacing is. A man invests more when he feels there are layers he has yet to uncover. When he doesn't, when he feels he has all of her within weeks, his subconscious concludes, "There's no journey left here." Now, let's connect this directly to you. How often have you confused giving more with being more valuable? How often have you mistaken constant availability for loyalty, over-nurturing for love, or endless verbal sharing for intimacy? These mistakes don't show up as explosions. They show up as slow leaks. And by the time you notice, the energy is already drained. Let's go deeper. The fourth mistake is compliance without discernment. Many women say yes too quickly, too often, believing that being agreeable makes them more lovable. But what it actually signals is weakness. A man does not crave a woman who agrees with everything. He craves a woman who has standards, boundaries, and the spine to enforce them. When a woman says yes to every plan, every request, every suggestion, she's not being easygoing. She's being invisible. She dissolves her edges, and without edges, there is nothing for him to push against, nothing to respect. Remember, respect is not born from agreement. It's born from resistance. From the moments when you stand firm in what you believe, when you hold the line even if it risks his approval. A woman who never risks disapproval will eventually lose his respect. And once respect fades, attraction follows. And finally, the fifth mistake. This one is the most dangerous, because it wears the mask of independence. It is self-sufficiency turned into emotional isolation. Many women, fearing vulnerability, present themselves as untouchable. They never ask, they never need, they never show reliance. And while on the surface this looks like strength, to a man's primal wiring, it signals something colder: disconnection. A man bonds through usefulness. He wants to feel like he matters to you, that his presence makes a difference. When you wall yourself off, when you deny him the chance to provide or protect in even the smallest ways, you starve him of that bond. He doesn't think, "She's strong, I admire her." He thinks, "She doesn't need me." And eventually, he acts on that thought. So here we are. 5 mistakes, all innocent, all well-intentioned, and all quietly lethal to attraction. Over-availability, over-nurturing, over-exposure, over-compliance, and over-isolation. Notice the pattern? Too much of something that seems good turns destructive, because attraction is not built on extremes. It's built on balance, on polarity, on the delicate push and pull that keeps desire alive. Now the question is, which of these mistakes have you been making without realizing it? And how different would your relationships look if you could see the hidden rules men live by, rules even they can't put into words? If you're ready to stop guessing and start understanding the rules of attraction, subscribe now, because in our next video, I'll reveal the one psychological test every man uses, and most women fail. The truth is, most women don't lose men because of some catastrophic failure. They lose them because of small, repeated errors that quietly drain a man's respect and desire. And respect is everything. Without it, attraction is short-lived. With it, attraction deepens into obsession. Now let's break open the psychology behind why these mistakes are so destructive. Because once you understand the primal mechanisms at play, you'll see why they work against you every time. Think about over-availability again. On the surface, it looks harmless. You're showing loyalty, consistency, presence. But underneath, it sabotages the most fundamental law of attraction. Scarcity equals value. A diamond is valuable not because it's inherently useful, but because it's rare. A man's subconscious applies the same logic to you. If you're constantly there, instantly reachable, always accessible, you're no longer rare. And what is not rare is not respected. Here's the cruel irony. The man may not even realize why his attraction is fading. He may tell you he's just busy or needs space, but the reality is simpler. His brain has stopped releasing the chemical of pursuit because you eliminated the chase. Now look at over-nurturing. The instinct behind it is noble. You want to care, to protect, to show love. But men don't bond through being mothered. They bond through effort. Think of a soldier who treasures a medal. That medal is just a piece of metal. But because he bled and fought for it, it becomes priceless. The value is in the struggle. The same applies here. When you over-nurture, you rob him of his struggle. You become the medal handed out for free, and free medals never make it to the display case. Verbal overexposure works the same way. Imagine reading the last chapter of a mystery novel before starting the book. Do you still feel compelled to read? Probably not. Men don't consciously think in those terms, but their attraction operates on the same principle. The unknown is magnetic. The gradual reveal is what deepens his bond. When you flood him with every detail of your inner world too soon, you deny him the journey. Now let's turn to compliance, without discernment. Here's the truth men will never tell you. He doesn't fall for the woman who says yes to everything. He falls for the woman who forces him to sharpen himself against her boundaries. Resistance is what makes him grow, and growth is what keeps him invested. When you erase your boundaries in order to keep him happy, you accomplish the opposite. You bore him. You weaken yourself in his eyes. And sooner or later, he seeks out the friction that fuels his desire elsewhere. The last mistake, emotional isolation, is perhaps the most deceptive. On the surface, independence looks attractive. And, to a degree, it is. But when independence crosses into disconnection, it starves him of purpose. A man craves the feeling of being useful to you. He wants to feel that you choose him not because you can't survive without him, but because his presence makes your life richer. Deny him that, and he begins to feel redundant. And redundancy is the death of desire. Now here's the pivot point. What happens when you correct these mistakes? What happens when you shift from unconscious sabotage to conscious strategy? The moment you reclaim balance, you create polarity. Polarity is the invisible force that pulls men and women together. It's the push and pull, the tension between closeness and distance, that keeps desire alive. Without polarity, relationships become flat. With polarity, they become magnetic. Picture this: a woman who is occasionally unavailable, not because she's playing games, but because she has her own life. A woman who nurtures but leaves space for his effort. A woman who shares but doesn't overexpose. A woman who says no when it matters. A woman who is strong but still allows him to contribute. That woman doesn't just attract a man. She holds him. She commands respect and desire simultaneously. And here's the deeper truth. Men are not as complicated as society pretends. Their psychology is primitive, hardwired for survival and reproduction. Attraction, for a man, is not built on logical checklists of good traits. It's built on whether or not his subconscious feels challenged, respected, and needed. That's it. Every mistake you've learned today disrupts one of those three instincts. Every correction reinforces them. Let me give you a real-world analogy. Imagine fire. To keep it alive, you need three elements: heat, fuel, and oxygen. Too much oxygen, and the fire burns out. Too little, and it suffocates. Too much fuel, and it smothers itself. Balance is everything. Relationships are the same. Each of the mistakes we've discussed is like giving the fire too much or too little of one element. And when that balance is off, the fire dies, not in an explosion, but in silence. Now, let's flip the perspective back to you. Think about the last time a man lost interest. Did he give you a clear reason? Or did he simply fade, retreat, create distance you couldn't explain? More often than not, it wasn't about him not being ready or not knowing what he wanted. It was about one or more of these primal mistakes draining his subconscious desire to fight for you. And here's the most brutal truth. Men don't forgive these mistakes. Not consciously. A man rarely sits down and says, "She's too available. That's why I'm leaving." Instead, he just feels it. His attraction withers. His energy shifts. And by the time you notice, it's already too late. But once you see these dynamics clearly, once you train yourself to avoid them, you stop playing blind. You stop giving your power away through innocence. You begin to operate on the same level as the men who seem mysteriously in control. And suddenly, you're the one holding the cards. This is the true essence of being magnetic. It's not about tricks or manipulation or endless sacrifices. It's about alignment with the primal psychology that governs attraction. It's about respecting yourself enough to stop over-giving, over-nurturing, over-sharing, over-complying, or over-isolating. Because when you stop, something incredible happens. Men lean in. They chase. They invest. They respect. Not because you force them, but because you created the conditions that make it natural for them to do so. So the question becomes, are you willing to see yourself with this level of honesty? Are you willing to admit where you've been giving away your power under the disguise of innocence? Because the moment you do, you step into a different category of woman. Not the woman who's good enough, the woman who's unforgettable. And once you become unforgettable, you'll never again wonder why he pulled away. Because men don't walk away from women who hold this balance. They can't. Their biology won't let them. This is not advice. This is strategy. And strategy is what separates the women who are chosen temporarily from the women who are claimed permanently. Never forget, desire is not maintained by accident. It is maintained by design. And the moment you understand the design, you no longer fear losing a man. You realize that the only man worth keeping is the one strong enough to keep up with you. That's the shift. That's the magnetic mind.